So
I think the biggest thing that's going to happen with VR is the Move controllers. They're going to wait a year or so, and then they'll release PSVR Move controllers. And I feel like they'll probably wait to do that so the bundle doesn't look so expensive. So it's like, oh, you can use your old controllers as a selling point, but then they'll wait because those aren't good enough.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about, next week is Tuesday at 2 p.m. is this PSVR event here in the city, and that's when we and a lot of other people think we're going to get price, we're going to get date, and then we're going to be able to go. I think two of us are going to be going hands-on, and Max will be there going hands-on with a bunch of games. Some of them are probably going to be updated versions of things we've seen, and some of them I think will probably be unannounced things that we haven't seen yet. So what do you? So one of your sort of predictions in terms of PSVR is that we're going to get almost like Move. Have we had Move 2.0? Would this be Move 3.0?
No, we only had one Move. Yeah. I never think that it worked all that well. Mm-hmm. But I think they're really worried about the price because obviously there's an issue if you have the PSVR be more expensive than a console. It's going to be so hard to sell. So I feel like they will wait a year or so and then release Move controllers specifically for PSVR so the bundle doesn't look so expensive initially.
There was a trademark that's really cool. So I guess to back up a second, I guess the closest thing we've had to a Move 2.0 is the PS4 controller, which is it has the built-in light bar, which is basically the same thing, exactly. But there was a trademark recently, attributed to Sony trademark application, I should say, that was essentially like it allowed you. It's really weird looking. It's like a very hard thing to not explain visually, but it's like it allowed like a camera to sit here, and it was like a glove basically with almost a Move ball in front of it. So if you held your hand like a pistol, you could almost have like a virtual pistol. It almost allowed your hands.
It was almost like a GoPro that laid on top of your wrist that could detect your individual finger movements and sort of position them in the game as things that make sense, like whether you're holding an object or whether if you are shooting a gun, it's a gun in the game.
And that's the interesting thing is like that totally, like I agree with you. I think the input has to change because I don't think Move is sophisticated enough, especially compared to Oculus Touch or the Vive controller.
It's old.
Yeah.
And like that's why.
And it wasn't made for this.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's why my theory is they're just not doing it now because they don't want it to be too expensive. They don't want to have to bundle it with PSVR and then scare people off when it's more expensive than a console.
The crazy thing about Move is that Move, like the Move wands, were more impressive than the initial Wiimotes, but I don't think they were as impressive as the Wiimote Plus.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, so they got
once
left behind
Plus
in the dust a while ago.
Yes, and that's the interesting thing. So, like, I agree with you that they have to have some more sophisticated input. I don't know if it'll be a year later. I think they could do a thing where the raw version of PSVR that you buy, whatever, it comes with the processing box, PSVR, that's it, and maybe like 2 Move controllers, is going to be maximum $400, I would imagine. I don't think they can exceed the price of the system, but I can see them having a $500 version that includes rigs and 2 better controllers or something, like a PSVR Pro. Yeah. And I can see them doing that at launch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think that...
I just feel like they definitely have to have the option to have it in some way that's not more expensive than the console because
I totally agree with that. I do think there will be an entry-level version to keep it low and then because they know this is a niche proposition, right? They know that people who are buying Oculus and Vive day one are a small group, so PSVR can be equally as like it's that rare case where like the install base is big enough that the people who are day one crazy early adopters, super hardcore fans are probably willing to spend more, whereas the people who are trying to hook in terms of the mainstream, like they don't want to spend more than the price of the system.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sony's at a position now, especially when how they're doing in the console market as well as sort of where they are in terms of their competition in the VR space, that they can take a major loss on this, that they can sell for way under what the thing should be, especially
I think they will do that.
Yes, and especially in the shadow of a $600 Oculus and an $800 Vive. Like if theirs is half of an Oculus, then that is so much more appealing. And like we always say is, yes, there's those inherent costs, but there's also the fact that a $400 box will 100% run a PSVR, whereas you might need a $1,200 computer to run.
I definitely think that PSVR is the most user-friendly one, and we've had this discussion before where it probably is the most likely to sell because it automatically works with the hardware that you already have and a lot of the games that you already have. And I kind of assume that they'll be doing some of the like PlayStation Plus games every month, might even be PSVR games to try and sell PSVR.
Yeah, like added tiers, like when they added Vita.
Especially as you have to imagine eventually they're going to start waning off PS3 and even eventually Vita games on
basically
PlayStation Plus. Yeah. Like, so that would make sense. It's like leave behind PS3 and introduce PSVR.
But at the same time, like, you know, we keep saying that it needs to be cheaper than a console to not scare people off, but because it's the easiest one to use, it's also probably the only one that I would buy if it was $600.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing.
I love Vive, but I'm not going to buy it.
Even if we're wrong, right? Even if it's more than the console itself, it still stands that like that's the perfect point is what you said, which is that let's say this is $600 and a PS4 is $400. That still means that for $1,000 or probably even less if they bundle them, you get literally everything you need.
Yeah.
Whereas for Oculus or Vive, like a PC, there's no world where you're going to get a $200 capable PC to run your $800 Vive. Like that will never happen. Yeah. So I think even the combined costs, even if they exceed the price of the system itself, it's still that total for buying everything will absolutely be under $1,000. Yeah. And that's a ton of money, but that is like a more accessible proposition than, because I can see them, you know, in a perfect world, if this thing is, you know, $400 and the system's $400, on Black Friday, they could theoretically have like $600 bundles with both or something insane like that. And like when you do that, especially in the US for like around the holidays, for like a new piece of tech, for like a big install base, like I can see that doing really well in a way that like, I don't know what that hook is yet for Oculus. And I think they're going to do those ready-made PC bundles, but I don't know if that's enough.
Yeah. I mean, I also think one of the things that we're going to find out is I think PSVR will absolutely come bundled with a handful of games, even if they're smaller games. I mean, we know Oculus is coming with Lucky's Tale, which is a 3D platformer, and Eve, and possibly something else, and then Vive. At least our version of the Vive, which is not the retail version, sort of the pre-version.
Yeah, but I think we're safe to assume it'll come with the same games.
With Job Simulator, fantastic contraption, and Tilt Brush.
Yeah,
and I'm sure I would imagine they'll have the Dota demo and the Portal demo be free to download.
For Valve, yeah. So I mean,
I think we have those as well here, don't we?
Yeah, we have a bunch of them just on the press account.
But that's the thing. We have it's technically a dev kit, right?
Yeah,
and it's on the press account. Yeah. So I don't know what that would look like as a retail.
I feel like Job Simulator is going to come.
Yeah, totally. Especially that demo, because our version is not the full version. It's like
just one.
That feels like absolutely.
Yeah. But in terms of PSVR, like, what do you like of the things we've seen so far? Even if they're fleshed out a little bit, like you've played a lot of PSVR. Like, what do you think? What can you imagine it coming with?
That crappy Until Dawn roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like that seems like the obvious choice.
I mean, I don't think it can come bundled with a M-rated thing.
And here's the thing.
True.
Yeah. Also, like, it will absolutely include rigs. Because the thing is, we've seen all these demos and they're made as experiences to play at a trade show. Rigs is a proper first party game, and it's like we may not consider it as exciting as like, you know, God of War 5 or whatever.
I like
but it's
Rigs, but it's the only one that's ever given me motion sickness, and I feel like that's a really tough marketing decision. It's like, do we want people to play Rigs as the first game they play when it's the one that gives people motion sickness?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Literally no other PSVR game has given me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I don't know what that game will be if it's not with the system itself, because that doesn't feel, for that exact reason.
It has to be. It wants to be Rocket League, and it has to have a really big community to be Rocket League. So it kind of has to be bundled. And maybe what I played at Paris Games Week last year wasn't final product, so maybe they've fixed the motion sickness issue. But I think that's something they really have to consider.
Yeah, I mean, and motion sickness in general is a scary thing with VR. I mean, I think the very first version of Oculus, like long before the DK2, it was really, it had no head tracking, and like it just like it really made you sick almost immediately.
The first thing I played was Team Fortress 2, and then I played Mirror's Edge. Both of those things were terrible, and I played for about 15 minutes, and then I had to sit down and drink water for about 15 minutes afterwards because I was so sick. Whereas PSVR, the only thing that's made me feel slightly sick is rigs. Everything else has been fine. That's why I was thinking, like, being bundled with Until Dawn, I mean, doesn't really seem like a smart decision, but it also seems like an easy one. It's like people probably don't care about it. Game sucks, but it was basically done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that anything's ever launched with an M-rated bundle.
So like,
then
Playroom. The Playroom.
I totally think Playroom, and I totally think Rigs. Like, I think these are things where it's almost like very proof of concept-y experiences.
It's also, you're thinking of it as fun. You're thinking of it as, I mean, like, maybe nothing's launched as in literally, like, there's never been maybe a Wii Sports M-rated thing, but there's certainly been, like, console bundles for several games. So it's like there could very easily be one marketed as kids that has Playroom in it, and we'll get to that in a second, but one that has Playroom in it, and then one that does have Until Dawn and something else. Like, have, you know, the same way that, like, if I wanted to buy a PS4 last fall, I could have gotten a Taken King bundle, I could have gotten the version that came with Type Zero, I could have gotten Call of Duty. Yeah, it's like, it's not like there will only be one of these.
Sure.
So I think Until Dawn makes perfect sense for one of them.
Are those retailer choices, or are they...
Like, they can
Sony
be either.
Choices.
Like, they can be the actual produced box that's like in partnership with the third party.
Nintendo always chooses. Nintendo like chooses what they're going to have with theirs. I don't know if Sony does that.
I mean, all of those were choices. All of those were, and it was even
Sony
like
choices?
The ones that literally come, it's like the Vita. The Vita relaunched in the United States with Borderlands 2, and that was a totally official Sony bundle. You literally couldn't buy it without it.
So in that case, then I think they would just split the two.
Yeah.
They'd have
so
one
I
for
think,
kids, one for.
and I think you can have 10 of those if you really want to. I mean, probably not for VR, but I mean, like in the case of PS4, I guarantee you that this fall there's going to be like Final Fantasy 15 one. There's probably going to be a whatever Last Guardian one if it comes out, like whatever that is. Yeah.
Do we think it's going to launch with Move controllers? Or
unless they totally next week throw a curveball and they're like, hey, we've been showing with Move, but that was a demo. Now it comes with X.
I mean, there's only one thing I played with Move controllers, which is the Until Dawn roller coaster.
It has to come with something, right? Like you couldn't just use it with a PS4 controller. That would be really weird to me.
You can.
You could. Until Dawn I played with Move controllers. I played, the other thing I think it'll launch with is Dreams. Like launch with as in bundled in. Like I think Dreams,
that would be great.
I think the way Sony gets Dreams into as many people's faces as possible,
which is the only way that game can succeed.
Yeah,
it's a social media. That would be great.
Yeah. Honestly, that's probably more likely than No Man's Sky in some ways.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what do you think next week we'll see any old franchises or any currently existing PlayStation franchises that now have either a component that is PSVR or a supplemental experience that is VR or total God of War 4 is VR, that kind of thing?
I think maybe you see an Infamous experience, a God of War experience, whatever. I would be legitimately surprised if you saw something that was like God of War 4 is only on PSVR. Like, I don't think they would do that yet. I think after a year or after 2 years, you'll start to see that, and it makes perfect sense. But
the people making the games need to have the market proven before that's going to work.
Totally.
Don't want to make a wee mistake.
Well, I mean, and people did that with any new hardware. It's weird, right? Like with Vita, you got games built from the ground up, and they come across as more gimmicky. Like launch titles for something like this always don't quite get it in the way. And like Wii launch titles are a perfect example. Like the games that came at the very beginning versus the games at the end, they understood it more. Like I don't think you could have gotten a Mario Galaxy the day the system came out because you had to get through the Twilight Princess and you had to get through the whatever.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, again, one of the things I think I've said before on the podcast is I want to see Sony use their, first and I guess second party IPs and create these little auxiliary experiences. This is my weekly rant where I want all games to be short stories.
You just want really short stories packaged together.
That's all I want
almost
from
like
video
the
games.
Portal demo on Vive, though.
And so
like something like that, but for
Sony
Sony
version of that.
Yes,
but
totally.
it can be a $60 package that has an Uncharted experience, a Last Guardian experience, an Infamous experience.
Yeah.
I mean, even that's a good marketing decision. Like just before those release, just launch little VR packages to remind people those games exist, and everyone's going to play them.
That's really cool.
In the way that we already know there's going to be a Psychonauts one before Psychonauts 2. It was called Into the Rhombus, I think. That's going to be a PSVR exclusive Psychonauts thing that's going to bridge the gap between Psychonauts 1 and then Psychonauts 2, which isn't going to come out for a couple of years.
There was a Unreal Engine 4, this is weird, it's going to be a walk, but I promise I'm coming back. This week, there was an Unreal Engine 4 remake of Ash's room from Pokemon. And it was just a fly-through of a room, and you could see his badges and his bed and his
badges,
Pokeballs.
Baby.
Exactly. You could see all those like different colored Pokeballs. You could see his Pokedex sitting on the table with like the Squirtle entry open. You could see all this stuff. And it was purely it was nothing other than a tour of that room. I think something like that, like if it was like a month before Uncharted 4 comes out, if you see, or not Uncharted 4 because that's coming out earlier probably, but some first-party game, and it's like, oh, you can explore like Nathan Drake's house, or you can explore
a small section of Midgar in Final Fantasy 7.
Exactly.
That is a great idea.
Like I think something like that makes a lot more sense as like a companion, and it's not like a level of the game. It's nothing to do with anything. It's just more like like walk around Noctis's palace or whatever, or like sit in the car and like just look around the car and fiddle with the gears and stuff in VR. Like I think there are a lot of ways that you could do Final Fantasy 15's car.
I think that's an amazing idea. What actual PSVR exclusive games have we got announced so far? We've got Rigs.
We have Rigs. We have Until Dawn. God, what else have we
played? The Playroom one.
The Playroom. Yeah, I mean, so many of the
Robinson
things.
the Journey.
But so many of those. Yeah, Robinson the Journey is a good one.
Really
and Golem that they announced at PSX.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those, but then there are also things like Kitchen and like the London Heist and whatever that aren't games.
They're all demos.
They're demos, exactly.
I have a feeling if we see one thing that we've already seen before fleshed out at this event, I think it'll be London the Heist. I think London the Heist is the thing that has the biggest capacity to be a full thing.
We're also stupid in forgetting Gran Turismo, which is one of Sony's traditionally best-selling franchises, and they announced it at PSX. So there is a Gran Turismo VR.
Stupid.
Yeah,
that was correct.
Especially me.
Oh, and there's Tekken VR, which seems dumb.
Yeah, so there are. I totally forgot that there are a couple things that have been announced, and it's like we should actually compile a list of those somewhere on the site.
Because I played, I believe it was Drive Club. I don't remember which racing game, unfortunately, but I did play a racing game in VR at Paris Games Week.
They had Drive Club VR at PSX, so it's from that.
And that was amazing. Like I can't believe that I didn't get any motion sickness from that, and it worked really well. I also had
was that like a full 3D thing where you could look behind you and you're looking down or looking out the back window of your car?
It was like you were sitting in the car, and that worked really well. So I guess that's almost announced.
Yeah.
Like if that's I don't know if they'll release that, but it was a demo again.
That's where all of this gets confusing, and it's where it's one of the rare It's one of the rare takes where
no cats in this room.
By virtue of what we do, of going to these trade shows, it's actually almost harder for us to predict what the retail experience will be like, because half these demos, it's like when the Wii U was first shown at E3 2011, half those demos never came out. They were purely proof of concept. And I think a lot of the VR stuff we've seen especially are little things that people built to get used to the engine, to get used to the idea of developing for this hardware, but that informed the full experience that they'll reveal later.
Sure, or even a lot of those things ended up becoming Nintendo Land attractions. Which, if that thing we had was a Sony Land thing,
Land.
I like Nintendo Land too. I think what would have been great, a second Nintendo Land that just went all in on that stuff.
And maybe that's. I really
that's like the one where you all chase the Mario.
Chase me, yeah,
it's very fun.
It's really good. Yeah. There's that weird idea of things that Sony has tried in the past. This is going to be weird. No one's going to like this, but I like it. Like PlayStation Home is something that just didn't really work. Didn't really take off with a lot of hardcore gamers, especially. But imagine if PlayStation Home is more along the lines of Nintendo Land, and you're walking through it. Actually, the BioShock Infinite Clash in the Clouds DLC is something that reminds me of this, where you're walking through. There's a museum in there and stuff, and it's you can look at all this stuff, concept art from the game. Imagine if that's how they tie together something like these PlayStation experiences.
Yeah.
Like it's essentially a little
museum or a theme
you
park
walk
or
through,
something.
and you go into the Uncharted room and into
right?
Home's dead.
Servers turned off. It was only last year though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very recent. Yeah,
Home is dead.
All right,
Home is dead.
Yeah.
You can't go home again, literally.
Oh.